All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Wednesday Night Live. We have our regular crew here: Brian, Madison, Tom, and Tim, and we have a special guest. Hold on, I got the. Is that a? Oh, that's a dog. That's not me.
His killer chihuahua is that.
That was a dog. That wasn't me. We have a special guest today, Patrick. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
I'm not that special.
Yeah, you are. Everyone that comes on the show is a special guest. Patrick is going to go into letting us know exactly what he does. So I'm gonna take it right to you, Patrick, and let you tell us your vaping story, your journey, how you got started. Yeah. We that's part of the show. That's the main focus of the show. Is we like to know everybody's journey. Were they smoker, chewer? Their first device, their first juice that got them over the hump.
You can do it.
Well, I've actually scripted it. I've told it so many times.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we're gonna go ahead.
I've been around a long time, so I've written it out and sent it to every politician. When you're an advocacy guy, you look for easy ways to do it. So you write one letter and you store it in your Microsoft Word, and then you change it. Yeah. So. Well, I mean, I started smoking when I was like 13 years old. I mean, a typical, kid from the late 80s. And, I liked it. My parents both smoked it. And when you're a little kid and you hate it, like you hate smoking, you walk into the room and your parents are both smoking and your eyes immediately start to puff up and you start having tears and, you're damnedest to talk your parents out of smoking. And then one day, adolescence hits and you decide, oh, I'm going to try this. I'm going to be cool. So you steal your dad's cigarettes and you start smoking.
Yep.
And, I smoked all the way through high school and all the way through college. And over the years, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I smoked cigars. I went through the going and hanging out at the cigar shop to, working at the cigar shop and just enjoying and loving the smell of the humidor and, going and opening the casks of pipe tobacco when somebody would come in and taking those deep breaths of those tobacco smells and aromas.
There's something special about that cedar smell, isn't it?
Oh my God, it's amazing. But, I never thought I tried to quit in the past. I've tried the patches, the gums, the lozenges, the hypnosis, the cold turkeys. I always went back to it because I liked it. My body loved nicotine and I wanted it in every way, shape, or form. So I started dating this girl and, the whole time that we were going out and we were dating for a couple years, she, kept telling me, I'm not going to get married to you until you quit smoking. Well, my wife is a nurse and she's from the Philippines. So the deal was that because it's very important in their culture, she had to get married in the Philippines. So we went to the Philippines and cigarettes are like $11 a carton in the Philippines. So we had 2 weeks of prep. Like we had planned everything out as much as possible, but we still had 2 weeks of prep before the wedding day. So I went and bought like 10 cartons of cigarettes. And I'd only smoked like 2 cartons before we got married. And I had like 8 cartons of cigarettes left. And
you smoked 2 cartons the day of you getting married?
No. I had 2 weeks. There were 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, 2 cartons.
I was going to say, you really didn't want to get married if you smoked.
So, the night of the wedding, it happened. We got married and everything. And the day or two later, she said, I thought you said you were going to quit smoking when we got married. I said, well, I have these 8 cartons of cigarettes left. So here's the deal. When I get done with those, I'm done. That's it. I'm not buying another cigarette. So we, spent the last 2 weeks of our honeymoon in the Philippines. And then we came home and I still had 7 or 8 cartons of cigarettes because more cartons had gotten
somehow it got in your bag. Yeah.
So we got home and, I put the cartons of cigarettes on the dining room table right in plain view. And over the course of the next few months, I started, panicking in my head because I was like, I promised that I would quit. So every once in a while, I would go to the C-store, buy a couple extra packs, and slide them into the carton. This is not. I mean, this is how bad I enjoy. Because at the time, vaping was not here, or at least it wasn't present. So time passed, and then she looked over one day because I hadn't been paying attention, and she said, "There's 2 packs left."
Oh.
So at that point,
yeah, you're right.
I started mentally panicking, and it was because she knows there's only 2 packs left, and I can't cheat anymore. So, this was doomsday in my head. But she said to me, I was on the last pack of cigarettes. It was a Friday. She said, when you get home from work, I want to go to the mall, which I hate the fucking mall. Like, I hate it. Mm-hmm. But I'm there as dutiful husband. I'm the purse bearer. She's running around from store to store, and I'm standing in the courtyard with all the other husbands. And I look over out of the corner of my eye, and there's this little kiosk, and it says "Smoke Anywhere." So she's in there, the Bed Bath and Beyond, or whatever it's called, the smelly store where all the candles and perfumes and all that. So I go over and I start talking to this guy, and he's talking about electronic cigarettes and these little, Ciga-like cigarettes. This is the first generation. This is what we had. And he's explaining how it works. And you have this liquid that you drip into the cartomizer at the end. You take the little rubber cap off and you fill it up, and then you put the cap back on, and you can reuse them. You can refill them, maybe throw them away once every 2 weeks or so, which was, anyway. And I'm like, does it work? And he's like, yes, it works. So I spent $150 on a Ciga-like kit, 2 batteries, and 6 or 8 boxes of cartomizers and a recharger in December 1st of 2010.
Wow. And that was about the price too.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, this was just, I mean, they had been around a little while, but not in small town Corpus Christi, Texas. I mean, we don't get everything until, I mean, we're about a decade behind in a lot of things. But so, got home, I used it. I knew that this wasn't, hey, Shannon, I knew that this was going to work for me. So started looking online, because obviously $150. I was like, there's got to be a place where I can buy these refills or these cartomizers cheaper. So I started looking online, and I found a couple companies. There was maybe 2 or 3 on all of the internet. But the thing is I found ECF, which I rapidly got banned on. And there were these people that had these video streaming shows online. And I found that there was a whole bunch of like other guys, just like me, and girls that were doing these little shows online. And that's where I first met Demetrius, because he had a show, or he was on a show on what was called Stick Cam at the time. And we migrated through different variations of that theme for a few years. And, we had already experienced the original FDA seizure at, having custom seized these electronic cigarettes. I mean, I didn't experience it, but I had heard about it. And we already knew that the government was going to eventually come after us. And then obviously a couple years later, the deeming regs came out. And, not the deeming regs, but the actual ANPRM for the proposed rulemaking of the deeming, which was in April of 2014. And that's when advocacy really, I mean, obviously CASA existed before that, but this sort of became more of an urgent matter.
Yeah.
So I've been around since then doing all sorts of like skullduggery, and because, there was a time where there were a group of other like-minded individuals that were maybe less suit and tie based we all got together and started an organization called the Vaping Militia. We traveled all over the world or all over the country, giving more energetic and boisterous and aggressive talks in advocacy. Then, obviously Alex and Julie couldn't say those things.
Yeah.
So, they brought us around so that we could stand on stage and say those things.
Yeah.
Here, you take the hit.
You say the mean words that we're not allowed to say.
Right.
We're suit and tie people. We can't use cuss words.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we did the Vaping Militia. We did a podcast. And about that time, Demetrius had gone through different things. And he reached out to me and said, hey, I want to get you to do your own show on my new network. And then we started Smoke Free Radio. And that was in 2016. And that was podcast only. And then slowly but surely we migrated to video. I mean, he already had his YouTube channel and stuff that was, initially reviews, but then eventually that mutated into advocacy. And, but that's where we all started. I mean, that's how we all essentially met online in little chat rooms. There he is.
I remember that room.
I think he's moved his studio 2 or 3 times. Now, yeah, that website is
Who's that guy?
That's that ugly guy on your screen right now. That's me vaping at the Grand Canyon.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing place if you see it in person.
There's no Photoshopery. Fergus no longer does a show. Yeah, you're looking at a bunch of guys that have dropped off the face of the earth.
They have dropped off the face of the earth.
Mike still does
website.
Mike still doesn't show.
Yeah. This is the show, guys. The link is I will post the link as well in the chat, so you can go ahead and check that out.
You can look at that. That's definitely history. The links all still work, but we haven't really. I don't even think I have the passwords to change anything on that. So we rely mostly on the Facebook page to get our shows out. And Mike does vaping in the mic still. There's a separate Facebook page for him when he live streams. But all of the audio podcasts are still up there. We do like Demetrius did his DP show with Phil last night. The audio for that will be uploaded to Smoke Free Radio's hosting tonight. Probably. I actually have the recording. I need to line up everything, get it posted. The audio podcasts are they're disseminated in every podcast platform. You want to listen to us on Spotify? If you've got Spotify, I think all the young folks like Spotify. So we're on Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on Spreaker, Stitcher, SoundCloud. No, we're not on SoundCloud because you have to pay to be on SoundCloud. There's a couple new places that I'm not allowed to announce yet. I'm behind an NDA, so I can't talk about that yet. But we're going to be on some much larger distribution soon.
Yeah, I know. When I used to whenever I listen to the show, I always use Apple, and the main reason why is because, well, one, I use my little tiny portable little Apple guy to fill with podcasts.
Wow, that is old school.
That's an antique right there.
You really want old school?
I'm surprised he could find it on his desk.
Hey, listen here,
Patrick. That's the Facebook channel.
That is the Facebook page.
Okay, I just want to make sure before I put the link down.
Yeah, that is the correct Facebook page. So that's for the Smoke Free. That's for the entire network. I do broadcast Son of Liberty Radio directly onto that. But that's definitely where we are.
That add it, and I'll add that to YouTube as well.
Yeah. We've had other shows on on the network, and we don't control anything. I don't tell Mike what to put on his show. He does actually reach out to me and say, hey, do you care if I have such and such on my show? And I'm like, why would you ask me? It's your fucking show. Demetrius retired from management of the network and handed it off to me about a year ago. And my rule is that your show needs to be mostly advocacy. I don't want you up there pimping product. We do have a sponsor. If you look at that, Beyond Demand Vape does sponsor the network, and they sponsored the network in as much as they paid for the hosting fees. I don't run commercials. I don't do anything. Everything that we talk about on that show is relevant to advocacy stuff. We do have some fun, and we talk about drinking, and we talk, but the main thrust of the network.
You gotta break it.
The main thrust is to have a good time, educate, inform, and get people excited about fighting for their fucking lives and fighting for the lives of 500,000 people that die every year in this country from something that we could stop.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's one of the things that we have. We can try as much as we can to have control over, to help other people, and it feels like it's just being by thread.
I mean, I've been here a decade. I would never have thought that after 10 years that we would still be fighting. I mean, literally, this PMTA process that's going to happen in 13 days. The deadline is 13 days. 13 days, I think. Is basically everybody in this country that manufactures vaping products begging the government for permission to save people's lives.
Yep.
They're going there, love them, hate them, whatever you care about Juul. They spent $20 million on their PMTA application to beg the government. They said, here's $20 million. We spent $20 million on to study our product and prove that we want to save people's lives. Avail Vapor, whatever you think about Avail. I mean, I hear people talking about that they have links to Big Tobacco, and I see Avail say, no, we're no longer partnered with Big Tobacco. Whatever you fucking think about them, they spent $10 million on their PMTA. I have verified. I mean, this is what they spent. I know what they spent. $10 million to ask the government, please let us save people's lives. AES, which has connections with Swisher, National Tobacco and Swisher and AES. Whatever you think, whatever you care about those companies, whether you love them, you hate them or not, they spent $15 million begging the government for permission to save people's lives.
So that brings me to a question then, because we all play our part in our own way for advocacy, but you might be a little bit more on the inside compared to some of us. But what's your opinion of, like, say, those big names putting their applications in? Do you think that provides a foot in the door sort of situation for some of the smaller vendors that are out there?
There's two ways of thinking about this. Okay. So, the advocacy, like the message that Greg Conley's been putting out, that I've been putting out, that everybody's putting out, is this PMTA process is impossible for small businesses to participate in. It's impossible for us to complete everything that is in that process, that is listed in the deeming and listed in the statute and listed on that guidance document. It is literally impossible for us to comply. But then you've got these companies, which the FDA doesn't think that Avail Vapor is a big fucking company. I mean, compared to other mom and pop businesses, Avail Vapor is a big fucking company.
Yeah.
But compared to the businesses that the FDA is normally used to dealing with, you're talking about multi-billion-dollar tobacco companies that gross $650 million a year. Pharmaceutical companies, which are multi-billion-dollar companies. By comparison, Avail Vapor, which is a very large vaping company, they have 120 stores in the country. They manufacture product for bunches of different other companies. That's still a small business compared to the other businesses they're used to dealing with. So when You say small businesses can't comply, but then Avail Vapor, which they would consider to be a small business, complies. And they provide a $15 million PMTA with all of the relevant science, with all of the data, with everything that is necessary. That makes it even harder for us to push the message that it's impossible.
Right.
So I'm not sure. So this is the skullduggery and shadow stuff that's going on. Obviously, Prism was another one of the companies that that submitted.
Yeah.
Now I've been told that Prism is a division of or something that there's some connection.
A subsidiary.
There's some skullduggery. I don't know who owns who. I'm not,
Yeah, it's hard.
I don't know any of that stuff, but I know that supposedly the product that was submitted by Prism was Avail Vapors liquid. It's just rebranded. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't.
So if that's true or not true, don't hold me to it because I don't know.
Do you think with some of the bigger companies getting their PTMAs in, do you think that some of these smaller companies will join forces and say
they only have 2 weeks?
They got 2 weeks. I mean, I know they only have 2 weeks now, but do you see that happening last minute? I mean,
there's no. I mean, if they had joined forces 8 months ago, 9 months ago, they might have been able to get something going. And I know that there were companies that did. I know that there are companies that did. They have that PMTA sharing group, and I just hope that people understand that there is a process.
Yeah.
And do I think that FDA is going to accept every application that they receive? I don't believe that. I mean, obviously, right on their website, it shows that there's a spreadsheet that shows the number of PMTAs that have been submitted and the number of PMTAs that were accepted and the number of PMTAs that were denied acceptance. So that's there. So that's evidence that that's going to happen. Also, right on the guidance document, it says we are not going to accept incomplete PMTAs so that we can focus on the substantive ones that are complete. So, yeah, Demetrius is a little bit more positive than me, but he's been working behind the scenes. He's been, he runs a compliance company. He's been working through the process, so he has a better insight into that. eVapor Solutions is Demetrius's company, but yeah, there's right there. There's evidence that shows that they're not accepting everyone. So it sucks. I think that mom and pop businesses, unless they,
they stated what their how do I say it? Has the FDA stated how they're going to accept which ones? Are they looking big companies?
PMTA has like 7 modules that have to be completed. Some of those are just like, here's a bunch of science that we found that are relevant to our product. Obviously, there's product specific stuff that has to be included. You have to have testing that has to be included in there. Demetrius did a really good show last night where he went through the entire thing.
Yeah.
And then there are parts of there, there's stability testing that has to be done. That's over time.
Yeah. Right.
If you haven't started your stability testing, that takes months to do because they test it and then they put it on a shelf and then they wait and they take it off and test it and put it back. They have to do that like 6, 9, and 12 months or whatever. So yeah, I mean,
there was a big jump in April and then just things died in May.
that has a lot to do with the COVID, I believe.
Yeah,
RJ Reynolds put theirs in way early. Those guys. I mean, you got to realize RJ Reynolds has a high tech, super awesome science center with the top of the line, and they hire scientists from all over the world to go work in Geneva, Switzerland, in this beautiful facility. There's video that shows this facility. It is amazing. Of course, they're going to be able to generate every bit of science that they need because they have all the best scientists. Because they pay top dollar. So yeah, I mean, I think I've been flying the pirate flag on my show for about the last 2 months. Zeller. Speaking of Zeller, somebody sent me the link for a podcast that's oncology nurse talking to Zeller about tobacco products and vaping today, and I just listened to it. It's a 30-minute podcast. When the guy that runs the tobacco center of the FDA that is about ready to crush the vapor industry goes on to a show and touts the benefits of vaping. I mean, he does it in a sort of a tightly held way, but
It's like
he acknowledges
nonchalant way.
He acknowledges that that vaping is safer than smoking, and one of the and it would be a net benefit for public health if everybody that smoked combustible cigarettes transitioned completely to electronic cigarettes.
Did he end his statement with "so what"?
No, he said this very a lot. He said that he's made essentially the same comment many times, and he's been like he said it in front of Congress in 2014 or 15 during the help committee meeting. He said it, and knows, like with all, he knows that this is a solution to the tobacco problem.
Yeah.
But he also runs the regulatory agency that's about ready to destroy the industry.
Yeah.
You would think if he's so pro vaping that he wouldn't allow that to happen.
Well, no. See, because the rule, the way of thinking is if one child,
right,
if one child gets addicted to nicotine, then we throw 500,000 people under the bus. I mean, that's essentially what it is if one child, which obviously he acknowledged on that show that the dangerous products, the ones that the kids are drawn to, are these small pod devices that are easily hidden, that they can get massive amounts of nicotine in short amount of time. And those are he says those are the products, those are the ones, we're going to, even on that podcast, he said, we're looking at ways to help the open tank market so that we can focus on this, but they've done nothing. They've literally done nothing.
Yeah.
So the only thing that we can hope for is very selective enforcement. Because, he also said in that same Senate Health Committee years ago that there would not be a black market.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
The danger, the problem with black markets in general, if you're talking about illicit markets, is the fact that there's no quality control.
Right.
I'm not in the industry. I know that Brian used to be in the industry. I don't know what your backgrounds are, but there's always the danger. I mean, obviously, all the DIY people that are in the DIY community, we all know the difference between a clean kitchen and a clean ISO 5 lab. There's a big difference. Now, e-liquid made in your clean kitchen is probably still okay.
Yeah.
As long as you wash your damn hands and you don't like sneeze into the e-liquid bottle and stuff. Right. There's no guarantees.
Sanitary location.
Well, that's kind of leads back to like where we were back, what was it, 4 years ago, where people were making it in their houses and, people were catching people making liquid different ways and stuff.
Yeah.
That's go back to
we had a pair of those.
So, obviously, the black market's going to happen, and the people that are in the industry that know people, or the people that are in the community that know people, we're going to be able to get fairly decent quality product from our friends. We're going to learn how to make it ourselves, and we're going to have control of that. But there's going to be people that go to the flea market or sell it in the park out of the back of their car. That you have no idea what this stuff is.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that happened with the E-Valley.
Yeah.
Whether that's because the products were, I don't know enough about marijuana vaping to understand or be able to explain to you. I mean, I understand that they used an ingredient that shouldn't have been used. That's my technical knowledge of that, because I work in healthcare. I could never use it anyway because I get drug tested all the time.
Yeah. We have our resident CBD expert over there Right.
Yeah, I did watch the last show where that was described that Maddie was the CBD goddess.
Yeah,
Yep.
she is.
Yeah, she is.
I actually don't know anything about it. I mean,
Yeah, there you go.
I know how your body processes
Yeah, you're
CBDs and
thinking
marijuanas, but I don't know how the products are manufactured.
it's going to be manufactured for vaping the same exact way. The e-liquid's exactly the same thing. It's just instead of
Nicotine. Well, they
using
still some of them still have nicotine.
Yeah.
Is that right, Matt? I think some of them are using both. I don't know why they would, but
come across products that are. I've come across more like you can use nicotine with what they call a booster. You can add.
See,
like
I don't understand the
booster
chemistry enough
for-
to be able to speak authoritatively on this, but I was always under the assumption that good CBD could not be suspended in water soluble carriers. So that the bases had to be different. So I don't know because it's an oil.
Well, with CBD, you could do a different process where you can. I'm losing it off the top of my head. I had it last week where I talked about was the main common process where they basically, in essence, freeze it in the CO2 and then they extract it that way. But you could still have it in the same type of oil suspension just as PG or VG. It's just that the problem is that when you buy it from a dirty kitchen, they were lacing it with
Well,
vitamin,
I mean, they
vitamin
actually,
E
I know that
acetate.
they cut the marijuana distillate
Yeah.
with
CO2.
vitamin E oil, which is not good because that is a topical treatment and not shouldn't be inhaling. And I know that.
But that's exactly what I mean. That's also where the problem with us is going to go is that the black market for marijuana has been. That is a life lesson as what a black
There's my
market
friend
can
Bruni.
go wrong.
I agree with that statement
So-
100%.
Yeah.
that's it.
So I did a tweet a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago that basically said, the government is going to basically turn me into a criminal because I'm not willing to walk away from 500,000 people dying of cigarette smoking.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to comply. I don't own a business, so they can't really, if somebody says to me, "Hey, look, I got a friend that's a cigarette smoker, and I know that you do tobacco like DIY. Can you hook me up?" I'm going to send somebody e-liquid in the mail, for free.
Yep.
I am not willing to watch people die. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the same here too. Like with all the stuff I've been through, like even all the friends that I know who smoke, I know people who went from smoking to vaping. Even the first guy who actually got me onto vaping went back to smoking, and I still try every day to try to get him back again from smoking to vaping, no matter what it is. I'm
just literally, I am not willing to do that. And if that means that I'm adding a segment to Son of Liberty Radio, which will be me moving to the computer there where my mixing station is and videoing and doing live on the show, DIY, like simple, like 2 or 3 like flavor recipes, during the show. I'm just going to walk from here to there and I'm going to do that because I'm not willing to let people be. Well, I was afraid of DIY. Like years ago, I bought like a couple $100 worth of flavorings and all the stuff. And I tried it and it was me in my trifocals holding a bottle and counting drips into a bottle. And I was awful at it. It never worked. It didn't turn out right. And in the last couple months, Jennifer Winstead, from one of the DIY things that always watches my show, she started sending me e-liquid to try to figure out what my profile was. And then eventually she was like, you could do this. And then I went and I bought scales and I bought a magnetic stirrer. And then I started doing it scientifically with numbers. I was able to do it.
Yeah.
So, Kevin that does the show with me, he's doing DIY now too. But he's using, pre-mixed nicotine diluted down to 12 or 18 milligram. And he's, doing like flavor shots, But
And there's some great shows on YouTube too, as
Yeah.
well. I mean, Fresh from the Kitchen is one, and I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that really can help.
DIY or die.
DIY or die.
so
Well-
I mean, we're gonna do whatever it is that we need to do to help people.
Yeah.
Um,
The problem is going to be hardware, and
well, here's the deal with that.
yeah,
This is not good for the vape shops.
Yeah.
But the actual legislation, and Demetrius pointed it out last night on his show, was it's specifically written in the legislation that people can still legally order shit from other countries and bring it in on a personal consumer level and buy stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that was kind of my question. So, like, one of my favorite brands of e-liquid is in the UK. And are they subject to the PMTA?
Nope, they're on their own.
Different country.
Yeah, Demetrius actually put it right on screen as part of his presentation last night.
I kind of fell asleep like about 45 minutes in.
It specifically showing the language and specifically saying that it does not prevent the importation of these products from other countries. So
that's importation to consumer.
To consumers,
yeah. Consumer, right? Not
so,
to shop,
you know, I'm on a dreaded list, or I was for years, because I used to order Cuban cigars from Europe because they didn't have.
You're on that list.
And, I used to order my cigarettes from Sweden because they were about half the price.
Didn't pay those taxes.
And eventually I got a couple packages were seized. And after that, for years, every time I ordered something from overseas, there would be a little slip inside of the box because it had been opened.
Yeah.
And it would say, we checked what was in your box.
Yeah.
But I don't do that anymore. So, I haven't seen that for a while, but for years, every time I ordered something from overseas, it was like, hey, we opened your box. There's nothing in here bad, so you can have it.
Yeah. I think a lot of go ahead.
So that's one thing is I totally understand like ordering from different countries, like how the law states, but I have a few worries about this, especially with DIY is I'm worried about people getting whole nicotine and keeping it at their house and something bad happens with that. Like that's a concern I have.
Well, that's why I didn't do it, because I had my grandkids were always at my house, and I couldn't figure out where I could do this and make sure that my little grandson doesn't pick it up and go, "Oh, look, juice bottle," and so I kind of stayed away from it.
There's a news story a while back about a 6-year-old or 12-year-old. It's around that age, a really young kid who ended up getting into his mom's nicotine, ended up dying because of that.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago, but
for example, there's been 2 of those cases. There was one here in the United States in New York, and that was about 4 years ago, of a toddler. Mom left the kid with another, like a babysitter.
Yeah.
And the babysitter had apparently brought her stuff to mix e-liquid on the coffee table and turned her back, and the kid drank 100 milligram per milliliter nicotine and died. And then in the last 6 to 9 months, somewhere in recently, another toddler, it was a toddler in Australia, did the same, literally the same thing, drank 100 milligram per milliliter, because in Australia currently, because nicotine manufactured e-liquid is not legal. So you can buy 0 milligram, or you can buy flavor shots, and you buy your nicotine concentrate and you measure it and put it in there. As of January 1st coming up, they will no longer be able to import nicotine to do that. And they're supposedly coming out with some sort of process. Bruni is in the chat room, is in Australia, and Paul, one of the people that's on my show all the time, Paul Blameyer, is in Australia, and their systems, they're developing a system supposedly where that you can get a prescription and go to a dispensary and get nicotine. But
they've been their mailing system has been screwing around with their example boxes as well. Some of our Australian members are it's taking 2 to 3 months to get a box.
Well, some are
during,
just now getting
during
like
the
their
COVID
April box.
during the COVIDs, I think all of the customs people took vacation.
Yeah, they did.
Probably.
Well, it's European, so August is a bad month. Most of them go on vacation in August. So, but yeah, some of our members are still waiting like 3 months on a box, and it's in.
Oh, your Zample box?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to be Zample. I used to get Zample box.
Oh yeah.
Years ago.
This is where this show is being aired. This is aired on the Zample Box family page, which is and on YouTube.
Yeah, I used to get Zample
We're
box.
all Zample Box subscribers.
Yep.
It's kind of hard for me to get Zample boxes because I think at one point they stopped having 12 milligram on their selections.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
And I've been vaping 10 years, and I don't ever intend on going anything lower than 12 milligram.
You are a brave man. I sick.
Well, he's an MTL. He's a mouth to lung guy. So
I've been vaping a decade, and I started at 36 milligram.
Yeah.
70% PGE liquid with great throat hit.
Yeah.
And I tried. I have friends that are like, here's some 6 milligram. Vape it at 400 watts. It's got good throat hit.
Yeah, good throat hit.
And I vape it, and I'm like, this is really hot. This is not throat hit. This is. They're like, no, and no. There's a difference between hot vape and throat hit. It's not the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the reason why we all got together with the show is with the Zample Box group. We want to help answer the questions, newbie questions, experience questions, and try to give a big platform for it to help everybody, even young, new, old, everybody, to help answer questions all in one shot and just try to help them also understand what's really going on in the industry at the same time.
Well, okay, so I have a question for the 5 of you.
Okay.
So you all vape like less than 12 milligram, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. So how much e-liquid do you go through in a day?
We ask ourselves this question a lot.
10 or 12 at the most. And I make 3.
Yeah, so
9 years.
You're 9 years. Well, so does this question include?
Yeah, go ahead, Tim. Sorry, go ahead, Tim. September will be 9 years.
Okay. So I'm about 7. So does this question include the fact that I balance out some of my freebase vaping with Nick Salt or Salt Nick?
Well, see that screws up the formula. But
okay, all right. So
I have friends that vape 60 mils a fucking day.
Yeah, okay, no, I don't do nearly that. No, see, so
and I'm like, how are you saving money? Everybody's like, I vape to save money, and I'm like, but you're not saving any money.
Yeah.
See, normally for me, it's about say 10 to 15 mils max a day on 3 milligram, very very max. The most I ever went through was 90 to 100 mils in one day. But when I realized I could do that, I actually jumped up my nicotine, and I would jump up back because I started on 20/40/18 and worked my way down actually to 0. And when I actually managed a shop before, she was actually on 12, so she would get all of her samples on 12, and she wanted me to try them. I was the person who was actually like making the shop from her just doing it as a fun little thing to make money to actually something that was around town. And so I had to take samples in my dripper at 12. And then that kind of put me back up to 6 to 12 for a while. I'm like 90 watts, 90 to 100 and some watts. I'm like, oh Jesus, this is a dumb idea. So I learned how to like put something in like a single coil in like a dot mod at like 60 watts and use that. And
so I'm making it 15 watts.
Yeah.
And I work my way all the way down now to I mainly use multi-lungs with say like 6 the very highest, and I go through maybe in a higher nicotine, say maybe 4 or 5 mils a day. So
y'all are all respectable. Y'all, none of y'all are these.
I'm
Yeah.
0. See, I've been vaping 12 years. I'm 0 to 3 milligrams. A stressful day, I'll pull out 3 milligrams, most of the time 0. And I'm maybe about 3 to 5 mils a day.
mhm.
So you and I are about the same level, except that I have to have my nicotine to
Yeah.
from becoming a mass murderer.
She has to have her zero or Nick, but it has to be bubble gum.
Yeah, she is only bubblegum.
I mix a lot of stuff with bubblegum. And that's why I'm kind of happy my favorite company's in England.
She's like, oh, I have a peach liquid. Let's have bubblegum. Oh, it's a dessert. Let's have bubblegum.
Like that ginger e-liquid you gave me was fantabulous with bubblegum. That's what it was missing.
Yeah. I use salt next too. I do when I'm out and about because the stigma of the whole blowing clouds and like you are so and so with that. I use a smaller device when I'm out in public with my wife and kids and all that stuff. And my one bottle of say like 50 milligram Nick salts can last me almost a month.
I don't like the way my body feels. I don't like the way I feel on nicotine salts.
Yeah.
It's like I haven't had that issue. I've heard that issue. I have not had that issue.
I don't. I heard people say, "Oh, it makes my chest feel tight." I don't feel that. It just I don't feel satisfaction, and then I feel like weird up in the head, and I don't need anything to make me even weirder in the head. So, yeah, I like what I like, and I'm not willing to allow the government to stop me from liking what I like. So,
right.
That's the thing is, the son of Liberty Radio. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. But we fell into a rabbit hole when we fight for this thing that we're trying to do and save people's lives and preserve choice and all this stuff. That message works pretty well with Republican politicians, but that's a fucking dead end when it comes to Democrats.
Yeah.
And we failed to realize that early on and tailor our conversation with whoever it is that our audience is.
Well, I think you're going to have a hard time tailoring your conversation with them because theirs is, well, then how do you stop the children from getting a hold of it?
Enforce the laws that you have on the books. If people enforce the laws that they already have, even before T21, it was already illegal in 49 or 50 states by the time we got done in 2016. It was already illegal in every state for a minor to purchase this product.
Exactly.
Well, that's totally understandable, but we have no control over making people enforce it, and so
we don't have any control. But the problem is when you're talking to politicians and they say, well, the kids are using it. Well, you say, okay, you have FDA, you have departments of health, you've got departments of police in every state and city in the United States.
Yep.
You have a law that prevents children from having these products and purchasing these products. We're giving you permission as an industry. If we're selling to kids, you have our permission to smack us.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, even the schooling system, like I was telling them earlier, there's a new documentary series on Netflix called Broken.
Yeah, it's not new.
Second episode. Yeah. Oh, well, okay. To me, it's new. Okay. I'm watching a lot of documentaries, and I haven't come across this one yet. But in the second episode, they talk about the kids, and the second episode's about vaping, big vaping, and how these schools are not even enforcing this themselves. That these kids are in a bathroom for 20 minutes in a classroom time frame, and nobody is yet questioning. Like, why are they gone that long? So, and that's the education system, I think, is also significant.
Well, literally, here's the deal. If that kid, if they've got that kid on camera, so that kid must not be hiding it very well.
Yeah.
If they catch that kid with the vapor product in school, what they normally do is confiscate it. What they should be doing is calling the local health department or the local tobacco control or the local LEO, the local sheriff or whatever, marshals, cops, whatever, and say, hey, look, we got a kid here that's got a vapor product. It's pretty much written into every state law that you can't punish the kid. So the thing is, American Lung, Legacy, Truth Initiative, Tobacco Free Kids, when they go into a local place and they're pushing these tobacco laws, they specifically ask, we're going to give you a grant of $50,000, and we want you to pass this bill, this law, this ordinance, whatever, but we don't want you to harm the children.
Well, you could definitely tell that because every single one of those children who got sick from the illegal THC cardos, that really started this.
Well, that's a
care tactic.
Yeah, it's completely.
They should have been punished to the law.
That's a completely different thing. This has been going on since 2014. If anybody believes that this youth epidemic dialogue started just with Juul,
no,
your head has been in the sand.
It's been.
I can pull up articles from 14, 15, 16 that talked about dripping being the next freebasing. It's the most addictive way, blah, blah, blah. This youth thing is this whole campaign started 5 years ago.
Yeah.
The problem is that the laws have never been allowed to punish the child for purchasing. When they do catch you, when they do a sting sale in your store and they catch you, you get a warning letter. Now, certain states, California has very restrictive. If they catch you like twice, your fine is like $50,000 or something. It's crazy.
I think they're even now.
State
didn't they add the taking licenses now in California?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every state that has tobacco control laws should be punishing these people.
Yep.
Not writing warning letters. You know what? Here's your warning letter and a $500 fine. If you do it again, it's a $1,000 fine. If you do it after that, it's a $5,000 fine. If we catch you, we're going to spank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then say, hey, to the kids, you shouldn't have done that. And because you did that, you've got to attend a tobacco education seminar on your weekends for the next month.
Yeah.
And you have to do 100 hours of community service.
Yeah.
Because if they issued them a fine, they're not punishing the kid, they're punishing the parents. Parents these days are just going to write a check and say, "Oh, Jimmy, we love you. It's okay." So, put some teeth to it. Don't worry about taking money from the kid. Take the kids Saturdays away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Make them do the Breakfast Club, but make it less fun than the Breakfast Club because I love that movie.
Yeah.
But, do something so that we have these laws, use them. Don't create a whole new set of laws that people are going to fucking circumvent anyway.
Warning letters.
So,
well, in the
tools, why are you leaving them in the toolbox is what I want to know. If you really care about these kids.
Yeah. In the late 80s, I mean, I can close my eyes and I can picture at least it happening 3 to 4 times a month in every liquor store I walked into where they busted them. And I haven't seen that in 20 years at least.
Now, we do not have the liquor lobby. So let's be clear on that. They've got a couple hundred years of doing business in this country. Yeah. And they're, you got to realize that, booze, even during Prohibition, was a huge money-making scheme for the American government. Tobacco and booze, the sins, have kept the government running. So you realize the first tax levied in the United States was tobacco.
Tobacco tax, yeah.
And, as a United States, that was our that kept our government running for years and years and years. It's the first thing that kept us from going into the red as a country was tobacco tax. I wrote a blog on it years ago explaining how the history of tobacco tax and that historically it is the first tax that was levied on a bunch of people that rebelled because they didn't want to pay their taxes.
Right.
But at the same token, we have alcohol and we have tobacco, we have firearms, we have all these different things that are regulated that minors are not allowed to have.
Yeah.
And so you would think you just add another thing to the list. It's the same rinse and repeat for enforcement.
Well,
so the government
put it this way, kids are still buying cigarettes.
Yeah.
Kids are still buying booze.
Yep.
But they still have no excuse at this point because they've cracked.
They have billions of dollars worth of lobby that we don't have.
What was that number? I remember reading it a couple months ago, but how the alcohol industry relies on that minor buying alcohol, because the numbers were just like 33%.
You want to know what the most heavily regulated product in the United States is?
Heavily regulated?
The most the product that is sold in this country that has the most rules that they have to follow for the production of that product.
Food, probably.
Bourbon is actually bourbon has an entire alphabet of regulation. If you're producing a product and you put bourbon on the label, they have an A to Z of regulations that they have to follow to be able to call that product bourbon.
Isn't it only to be made in one state or something like that?
No. That is what people believe. Bourbon has to be an all-American made product. It has to have 51% corn in it. There's a B in there too. It has to be aged in a specific type of brand new charred barrel, an oak charred barrel. It has to be white oak charred barrel, and it can't be a used charred barrel. Then you can't add anything to it. There's no additives. So they have all these different things just to be able to say that it's bourbon. So they have their heavily regulated industry. Whiskeys and spirits in the United States are heavily regulated, but they also have a history.
Yeah.
They've been in the halls of power for centuries.
Yep.
You got to realize that the settler. I'm watching a documentary. That's why it's on my mind. I'm watching a documentary called "Neat: The History of Bourbon."
Get a glass. You're gonna make me go get a glass, Patrick.
I actually have behind my. Oh, there it is. There's my whiskey stuff there. But no, I'm not, because my wife just came home from work and there will be a supper soon, so I can't be inebriated. After dinner.
Save it for Friday.
Oh no, there's booze happening. I have Michelle Minton on my show on Friday, so.
And what's sad about that, what LabWorks says, that's our money.
Yeah,
that's the thing is
he's in Australia. It's not Aussie dollars.
Yeah,
it's not their money. Like tobacco-free kids, it's not their money. They get their money from the MSA.
No,
they don't even get it from that, because
tobacco-free kids. Tobacco-free kids are a separate entity that divided off of Legacy at some point, and I'm sure Lindsay Stroud will correct me in the chat room. But they took the money that was given to them from their initial MSAs and heavily invested it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you look at their Form 990s, if you look at all of their stuff, it is dividends from all of these massive investments that they made over the years. Plus, I mean, they do get donations and stuff.
Yeah,
they have fundraisers and stuff, but they get a massive chunk of money from investments that they made from their original MSA payments.
Yeah,
I don't believe the charity groups and the nonprofits that got money from the MSA. I don't believe that is in perpetuity, as it is to the states.
But Truth is still getting money from them now, right?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
From what I read, Truth was getting straight from the MSA.
So they have the FDA has their own propaganda wing.
Yeah,
it's called The Real Cost.
This is all like super complicated, but yeah, keep going.
So The Real Cost is actually it was created.
Correct.
Yeah, Truth was created by the MSA, but I don't believe they're getting any funding from the MSA anymore.
Yeah.
I don't believe any of the nonprofits that were either formed or received funding from the MSA from the original. I think those payments expired. I don't think they still get money from them.
Yeah.
The tobacco-free kids and those guys, they invested, they survive on big money donations from Bloomberg and other people.
The Karens of the world.
Dollars last year. So it is. I think that's pretty. I think I'm right. And Lindsay agrees with me. So that's good.
You get that?
Yeah, and the CTP, which is the Center for Tobacco Products at FDA, does get all of their money, all of their funding is from tobacco user fees. So there's no tax money, from our income tax that goes into the CTP.
No,
That's all from tobacco cigarette money from user fees that the tobacco companies pay every year to have the right to sell a product in this country.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the way that works. But yeah, I mean, we have back to the original topic that we kind of went off of. They have laws. They should just enforce the laws that they already have, because if they make new laws, there's no proof that they're actually going to they're going to enforce those.
Well, that's the thing is so I have a daughter. She's 17, and with her principal, I went there to talk to her because they talked to my daughter had a health class with anti-vaping and Juul is bad, blah 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 type thing. Anyways, so she brought her homework home and I talked to her about it. So I went in and talked to her principal. I just said, I just like to talk to you about just some of this homework, and it wasn't like more of like me preaching of such and such. It's more like, is there anything I can do to help you identify what is what? Because I've been in the industry, I've been doing it for a while. When you have devices that come in, you catch kids with whatever, what happens? And she said that they give them a $25 fine and that's it, and then keep moving. I said, okay, well, what happens after that? She said another $25 fine, and then they have to go to like a tobacco is bad type class.
Yeah,
is what it is. So I said,
every
okay,
state's supposed to have that program.
Yep. And I said, okay, well, what happens after that? She said, well, another $25 fine, and they do the class for longer. I said, okay, what happens after that? And she said, well, we haven't had students reach up to that point yet. I said, okay, because I'm trying to figure out what you're actually doing to help punish the kids, because it doesn't seem like you're not. You're not actually doing something here. And I want to know like what can be done. And she said, that's all we can do. I said, by who says that? And she said it was by the city. So I said, okay, well, what can I do to help you to identify which is THC, which is CBD, which is whatever, to which is nicotine? Like, I want to help you to identify stuff. And she invited me to a meeting with the health officials here, Cass County Health, and all that stuff. I said, I would love to attend it. I'm not here to preach, you need to be doing this. I want to sit here and help you is what I really want to do. And because they didn't know what devices were what kids are using, nothing. They had no clue. So I said, I want to help you do this. And the day before the meeting came, and she sent me an email. She said, we don't think that your platform is right for our office. I said, I don't have a platform. I'm trying to help you. I think you misunderstood what I'm trying to do. I want to help you to identify what things are what. And she said, well, I don't think we need your help anymore. I said, by who? Like, who are the people that are identifying these products? Apparently it's the health department. I'm like, okay, so these people who are anti everything know what all the devices are and what they do? I don't think so.
They're not interested.
They're not.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not interested.
That's what it came down to, and I was really upset with it.
That's the other thing that I find is a huge issue is why is part of the punishment not like it was old school, where they literally call your parents up and tell them that they have found this device on you. I mean, I have kids in school, and I noticed from when I was in school, and I think I'm the youngest in this group.
You are.
Yeah, when I went to school, there was a smoking area for us to go.
Yep.
Same here.
Yep.
I don't think I'm that far off from being the youngest, but I think the youngest in this group.
You're a baby. You're a baby.
In school, if you did anything, your parents were being called immediately. Like your parents were so involved in all of your punishment process, everything of that nature completely. So, but I find with kids in school nowadays, like parents are the last one to find out. And it's when your kid's getting suspended and they've had behavioral issues or whatever issues for months at a time, and they have not told you. So
now they have to give them space, and they have to,
they send emails.
They don't want to traumatize them by calling their. See, when I was a kid, if I acted in school, my mama was a substitute teacher, and everybody knew my mama. So, and my mama was a big lady, and if you pissed her off, she'd grab a whole. My mom used to play professional, semi-professional softball, fast pitch softball.
Yeah.
So when she was at school, the kids literally like all turned into angels when she was their teacher for the day.
Yeah.
But
I remember my son.
The principal said a smart aleck remark to her one day, and she picked him up by the throat and put him against the wall and said, "Don't you ever say something like that to me again." I mean, my mama's a fighter. But yeah, I mean, I would never I was a sneaky shit, but no, that's the fear of my mama coming to school and dragging my crying ass out into the parking lot to take a belt to my butt.
Oh yeah,
that's a real fear.
That's we don't want to traumatize these children. Yeah. But that's how my generation and the older people in the room were taught and raised.
Well, my son's 28, and I remember because all this new stuff, it's just recently, because like when my son, let's see, he's 28, so when he was in high school, if he got caught with a lighter, he got suspended, and I got a phone call for a lighter. For not even a pack of cigarettes. If he
a lighter could have been lighting anything, though. I mean, they let us. If our parents wrote a letter to the school or a permission slip
for a lighter,
we were allowed to smoke. We got a smoke break in the afternoon after lunch, and all the smokers were, congregated into one. That was where we were allowed to smoke.
Yeah,
and they would never have done that. But for any other problem, they would have called my mama and.
Yep.
There would have been hell, but nowadays parents don't want to parent. They want to be friends with their kids.
Right. And that's a problem.
So is a lot of parents also don't want to face embarrassment. So that's
part of the punishment. That's part of the fear. If mama had to leave work to come to school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was part of the motivation not to act up and not to get in trouble. Was because if mama had to leave work, when you got home, first you were going to get embarrassed at school.
Yep.
And then
24-hour suspension for a lighter.
Then you were going to get home and have to bear the brunt of the, you didn't want to do that. You didn't want to get caught. You didn't want to do things. If you weren't confident that you could get away with it, then you wouldn't do it. You would
be begging to go to school and not be suspended to get away from it.
We didn't have schools. We had, if you got in trouble in school, you got 3 days at home.
You got 3 days.
Yeah, it was not a delightful 3 days.
We didn't have in-school suspension where you had to go and sit into a quiet room. We didn't have cell phones that you could play with while you were in-school suspension,
right?
Or tablets or whatever. We didn't get a trophy for just showing up.
Yeah, for first place.
No,
sorry. Everybody's going to say, "Who's that boomer?" But I mean,
that's it. I mean, today's kid, you can't really send them to the room because they have everything they need in that goddamn room. The computer, they have.
That's why you take all that shit away from them, and then send them to their room.
Because then they have to bother their.
I don't have a video game system.
Yeah,
no,
I want to play video games. I'm going to take yours.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, my kids, they have Wi-Fi that goes to their room, but if they're in trouble, I turn it off.
I got an app on my phone that will change the password.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do all of that stuff. Yeah. And there's no excuses for it, really.
Well, that's the same thing at our house is I had a structure to where, like, my daughter who's 17, she's highly into like Snapchat and Insta and all that stuff, and she figured out. I was, as it progressed, I figured out that she was learning to just create new accounts as the days go on. And so what I did is I just use my app and just cut the phone off or cut the app off or cut the iPod off.
One of my friends told me the other day that their 12-year-old kid needed a cell phone.
No.
And I said, what? And, I'm going to go buy him a new iPhone. I said, you buy that little shit a fucking prepaid track phone, flip phone.
Yeah.
That can make emergency calls, that can do all that, but there's no reason for. I mean, I guess I really am a boomer.
So, like,
I'm the same way.
There's no need that a 9-year-old should have a $1,100 phone.
Like, I've got an application right here. I don't think you can see it.
Well, you're a network engineer, so it's no fair. Your kids don't have a shot.
No,
when you get older, your kids are going to have a shot.
My son's 11 years old, He's autistic, but he goes to like a daycare. He comes up to me the other day. He says, I want a phone. And I said, okay, give me your top 3 reasons why you want a phone. He tells me, to play games. I said, well, you got a Kindle. He says, oh, because I want to search the internet. You got a Kindle.
Mhm.
Sorry about that. I got
You
out.
dying over there? We're gonna give you a cough button.
Then he says, oh, man, I feel like I'm going to die. So then he says to me, well, I want to be able to have internet wherever I go. And I told him, I said, I can create you a hotspot if I really needed to. No, you're not getting a phone. He says, well, what's your top 3 reasons why I can't have a phone?
He threw it back at you.
I said, 1, I'm your mother, so that's
Trumps
That's
everything.
the only one that matters.
I said, 2, you don't have a job and you don't pay any damn bills, and I'm not paying for you.
Yeah.
And then I said, 3, on top of that, your mother's a network engineer. I know what kind of security violations you can put to my network that I'm working at home in, running another network. So no, you're not getting another phone.
Yeah.
Man,
Mic drop.
Nokia phones. I had that when my very first cell phone was a prepaid track phone.
Yeah.
It was a Nokia. I think the only game you could play on it was called Worms.
Snake.
And
Yeah.
That was
there's no such thing as internet on that phone. Only thing you need is to be able to make phone calls. That's what a cell phone in my. Again, I'm a boomer.
Yeah.
I mean, I do spend quite a lot of time on Twitter on my phone now, but
Well, that Nokia is indestructible. You couldn't destroy that phone.
God, no.
I actually saw somebody. There's a Facebook video where somebody actually makes a hammer out of their Nokia.
Of Nokia, and they actually made it around it.
Yeah.
Yep, I
Yeah.
saw that too. Like I used
That
to have
phone-
one of those. I still have it actually. To be honest, it's in.
Probably
I
on your
might have it
desk.
in store. I might have it in. I don't throw shit away. I have mine here too.
I used that phone to torture my kids with. If they lost their phone or they didn't take care of their phone, I would pull that out and say, well, this is your phone now. And then I remembered that dreadful day that AT&T sent me that email. Those phones are no longer able to be used on our network. I was like, damn it.
But if you go to the AT&T store right now, they have like a little Motorola flip phone.
Yeah.
That you can pay like $40 for.
Yeah.
That will work.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to when they released the new Razor.
Yeah, the new Razor's coming out here pretty
I
soon.
love that phone.
Oh my God, they're releasing a new
That
Razor.
was like my
They're
first
releasing
high-end phone.
a new touchscreen Razor.
Yeah.
Oh man, that sounds amazing.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I always wanted to be Captain Kirk, and those flip phones always reminded me of the.
My pink Razor phone I actually brought with me to
Beam me up,
Iraq, and it didn't even get destroyed in Iraq.
They have they actually have like apps that you can download and like screensavers and everything. When you open that phone, it'll make the Star Trek sound.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I want
You would totally love it. My boss's last name is Picard.
Oh, God.
I'm a Captain Kirk guy.
Yeah.
I'm old.
It's really funny to work for an airline and your manager's name is Picard. Literally, the
As long as his name wasn't John Luke or something.
Yeah. My dentist was Schwartz, and he knew the jokes he was going to get every time I came in.
for the Schwartz be with you. Yeah,
My Schwartz is bigger than your Schwartz. He just
I just watched that movie the other night.
my son's pediatrician.
Get old, John.
His last name is Schwartz, and so when Anakin was born, yes, my son's name is Anakin, my youngest. When he was born, he came in the day after he was born, and he's like, "May the Schwartz be with you. I am Lord Vader."
Let me ask you a question, Patrick. Let's get back to
Get back on topic.
Yeah, with MSA money, not money, but the program itself running close to an end here.
There's no end.
Yeah.
Well,
no, there isn't.
There's no end.
I thought there was an end to that. I thought it was
No.
about done.
No.
Did they add
In
some?
perpetuity.
Oh, I didn't see that. I thought that was about done.
No, the
end date.
some of the payments to like
They had a 20-year.
the AGs got money from that, and the nonprofits. Those payments expire, but the payments to the states
They
go
continue.
on in perpetuity.
Okay, I just thought that had ended because I saw the end date on there, and I just assumed they were going to rework that to their benefit, of course. But
well, that entire the MSA, so the A is agreement. So that is not a legal settlement. That is not a court ruling. Well, it technically is because, but it's not a law. That is a legal binding agreement between the attorney generals of 46 states and all of the signatories that are on there. So, for example, this is the current snafu that people are looking at. One of the companies that was an original signatory on that document manufactured one of the menthols. It's either Salem's or Winston. Anyway, they no longer sell that product. They sold that to another company.
Okay.
But the company that signed the agreement is still making the MSA payments for the sales of those cigarettes that they no longer manufacture. And they're fighting because they don't make that cigarette anymore, but they're making payments to the MSA based on the sales of cigarettes that another company sells. So the thing about cigarettes is that different brands have switched from one company to the other back and forth multiple times. Lorillard and Altria and all these different companies switch products or bought by other companies or Imperial, so they're actually suing to be removed, to have that stripped from their thing, which could turn around and cause all sorts of problems because the protections that are written in there. So, for example, the states agreed to not file lawsuits against the tobacco companies, which screwed up the people that live in those states, because you can't file a class action lawsuit against the tobacco companies if you live in those states. So they essentially agreed that you were not allowed to sue the tobacco. So the tobacco companies figured, you know what, we've had all these multiple mini lawsuits nipping at our heels over the years. Let's do this out so that we never have to pay those payments again. We'll give you some money, and that will, help your coffers and go into your general budget, because this is another thing. There's nothing in the master settlement agreement that requires that the states use that money in any specific way. A lot of people believe that the MSA is supposed to create educational programs and health programs and help Medicare or Medicaid payments to those states to help the people. There is nothing in there that requires that.
So a question with the MSA is was that done without people's permission, or was that for the people with the states?
So the attorney generals of 46 states. So there were 4 states that already had lawsuits against the tobacco companies that didn't sign on originally to the MSA. So 46 attorney generals negotiated with the tobacco companies to do this. So those attorney generals who are, either appointed or elected, negotiated for the people that live in that state. So there's like I don't want to say a union, but there's a committee of all the attorney generals. They get a payment for litigating. So they get a part of the MSA. So then they put in language that the Legacy Foundation would be formed, which is an anti-smoking organization. They would get some money, and then Legacy broke up into little chunks later on. But then existing organizations, American Lung Association, got some money. The Truth Initiative was broken off of the Legacy. So anyway, then they agreed to make percentage, a percentage of every sale of tobacco in your state will go to your state. So the problem is those states got used to those paychecks at the end of the year or a quarterly basis or wherever that worked, and they didn't have enough money. So then they took bonds.
Yep.
They essentially took out loans on future tobacco settlement money. So they figured, oh well, this is how much money we're going to get next year and the year after and the year after and the year after, and we're going to borrow money based on those payments.
Yep.
But as people quit smoking, people went to vaping, people just quit or whatever, those payments started to go down. So then when they were getting those payments, they couldn't make their loan payments.
Nope.
Correct. So the basis behind the concept or the basis behind the MSA was the states were getting angry because all these people who were smoking were going in the hospital, getting treated for different stuff. They weren't able to pay their bills. So all the states were like, hey, we've had enough. Your product's causing this.
Yeah.
We want you to help pay for this so we can take care of this. The whole concept of that, right?
That was their justification.
Right.
So the original attorney general that started this whole thing was the attorney general of Mississippi. His name is Michael Moore, not the filmmaker.
Not the film.
Not the filmmaker. He was really the first and most vocal person to start this whole snowball. And he got success out of it. So then the attorney generals of other states were like, well, we're going to do what he did. So you got to realize the amount of money that the attorney generals association pulled out of the MSA. There's a big chunk of money. It's like $60 million or something from the original settlement. I think it could even be larger. The numbers are not quite in my head anymore. But those guys, those attorney generals took a big chunk of money. The union of state attorney generals.
Yeah.
And that went to the litigators. That did not go to the states. That went to the litigators. So, I mean, there was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
The world needs lawyers. World needs lawyers.
So in just like a in theory practice or a hypothetical practice, let's say that they had all their money. The states all took their money back, or took the money that was given to them from the MSA and actually gave it to the hospitals or individuals to help pay for the medical bills, like the quote should have been. What would that have done to our side now? Like if we came and approached like, hey, our product is actually can help smokers small down on the nicotine and help them out, hopefully, and the factor get off of nicotine if they want to, without the carcinogens, without them, having issues with their lungs and all that stuff. Here's our product. Let's help us all.
Okay, so the thing is if the MSA money had, if they had language that said 100% of the MSA money must go to public health programs.
Correct.
That would have completely mutated or changed the health system in the United States.
Yep.
Yeah.
Obviously, we would have better public health.
Mm-hmm.
And vaping may not have even ever had to be created, because we would have had millions and millions and millions of dollars go into the public health system.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of a hard, there's no way to answer that question, because people would still smoke, but if we had millions and millions and millions of dollars going into the public health department, educational programs, from, the master settlement agreement, which was, way back, that's been 30 years ago or so, whatever, 25 years ago, we would have had 25 years of very aggressive public health campaigns against smoking, and better health care, better, that's really, that's really hard to say what would have happened in that situation. Here's the thing is, CDC and Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, they get together every year and they release a report card for every state showing what they suggest each state puts into the,
or like a financial report type thing.
Well, no, they're basically saying, okay, we suggest that your state put 3% of the MSA money into educational programs.
Mm-hmm.
For kids, for smoking or whatever. Literally, they do this every year, and literally 2 states actually hit the suggested percentage.
Yeah.
Right.
48 other states either put less than what the CDC or the Tobacco-Free Kids suggest, or don't put anything.
I think it's the 6 that I listed. California. Well, California's been pretty good about using a good portion of that CDC money.
Not from they. I mean, they have their own issues. They have their own money, but the money that's actually from the MSA is less than 2%.
He's just trying to defend his own state. It's okay.
No, I'm not. I'm not trying to defend California. They actually rank pretty high on there was a list that we remember the list we went through of the states that are actually using a good percentage of the money.
It's only 2%. It's only 2 states. I can pull it up real quick. Alaska is one.
Alaska, yeah.
And I believe it's like one of the other.
Tennessee. It was one of the southern states.
But literally the threshold is very small. It's like 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
That they're asking for.
Yeah.
There's only 2.
California. Why would I defend California?
There's nothing to defend in California.
There's nothing to defend.
I have to give you shit.
Well, that would be a question that I would ask then, right? So it sounds to me like the MSA money is variable, right? So I mean, it's all based on cigarette sales. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So okay. Here's the states, and this is 50%. So the CDC says, here I can actually put the state report in the chat room for you guys. Yeah. Oh no, I can't because I'll put it in the private chat. So Alaska, California, Oklahoma, North Dakota, and Maine all spend 50% of the suggested number on tobacco programs. Texas is not Texas, Mississippi, Florida, and one other state are not part of the master settlement agreement. They have their own agreements. Yeah. Texas, where I live, they spend less than 10% of the suggested amount on tobacco education programs. And then all the other states fall in somewhere in between.
Yeah.
You know, so California, they spent $347.9 million on educational programs in their state. But you got to realize how much money did they already collect on their own taxes, because the master settlement agreement payments come from the tobacco cut, not the taxes.
Not the taxes on the pack of cigarettes that they're
getting. You got to realize guys like Stanton Glantz and you know Philip Gardner in California that teach at you know ideology and brainwash people in California, that's not even half of the money that Stanton Glantz makes per year for his university. You know, really. And then his money, he's got a constitutionally guaranteed payment to his college from California tobacco tax money.
Right.
Every year. Like Stanton Glantz, dirty old man, whatever you want to call him. He's a sexual predator. He's never going to lose his job because he brings in like $800 million every year for the state and $200 million a year for his university. Like he's untouchable. Mm-hmm. He could literally rape a woman on the street. Well, maybe not right on the street.
Yeah, not on the street.
Well, in California, there is a guy who did that, remember, and got less than 90 days.
So, yeah, I mean, Stanton Glantz can have 100 women come out and say, you know, he ogled me, he touched my boob, whatever. And he's not going to, I mean, the UCSF will protect him.
Yeah.
Because of the amount of money that goes into that school.
What about
I was going to hit a sound effects, but I won't do it for that.
He literally is Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, he
to bring it all the way back around to Star Wars.
He's bringing booty back, is what he's doing.
Right.
Absolutely.
So with all this, like there's a lot to unpack and like kind of like repack back in. There's with this whole industry and like with what's behind it, what's ahead of it. Everything has to be unpacked to be understood and then repacked back in to try to move forward again.
So,
And
so
to,
Lindsay,
yes,
Lindsay actually, according to this report card, Alaska is number 2. They're ranked number 2.
Yeah.
They spent $9.1 million on tobacco education programs.
What's the population?
They're 89.6% of the suggested total that,
Yeah.
that they should be spending.
Well,
So-
it helps that there's like 10 people in Alaska too.
Well, that's why the 9.1 million. I mean, there's only like 5 or 6 families that live up there.
Right.
yeah, I actually had a classmate that was like
Sorry to
that.
everyone in Alaska.
But every one of them smoke.
Everybody,
Yeah, of course.
I had a classmate that lived up there, and she's never smoked, never been a smoker, anti-smoker, great person, and she moved back here to North Dakota to be a bit closer to her family.
Because it was warmer.
Well, I mean, comparatively, it's not.
Not really.
I know. It was a joke. Move on.
Here's the thing that a lot of people in the California thing that happened. Obviously the menthol ban
yeah.
is a slap in the face to people of color.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
literally, I mean, this is what we should be talking about: is the fact that smoking rates amongst the first people, the Native Americans here, the Inuits, and Alaska and Canada, the Aboriginal people in Australia and New Zealand, and smoking specifically in those communities is way higher than in the general consensus and population. So Alaska, I'm sure that the Inuit or whatever the First Nations tribes that are from that area, they make a lot of money off of those people from smoking.
Yep.
And the health programs, let alone the smoking health programs, but just in general health programs amongst Native Americans, outreach from our government to their health programs is horrible.
Yep.
Yeah. Horrible.
That's why I thought it was funny when you said Oklahoma meets it, because that's where I'm from. And
they're 51.2% of the
and
suggested.
the funny thing is I'm from Oklahoma, and most people I know are smokers.
Yeah.
And whether they come from the tribe or not from the tribe, pretty much I could probably name off more people who smoke in Oklahoma than I do in Illinois.
Well, I mean, obviously, smoking is higher in areas of higher poverty and lower education.
Rural areas. Yeah.
We have all of the science and all of the numbers to prove that people that are in impoverished areas that have lower educational levels is higher in those areas.
Wow. Well, it's going to go up higher there. It can't get any higher. What are they paying for a pack of cigarettes? I know they got 30 in a pack there, but they're paying like 25.
Yeah. So Paul is saying in Australia, the Aboriginal numbers, 30 to 40% of the population smoke.
Wow.
We had Dr. Glover from New Zealand on our show in October or September or whatever. And like her whole thing is reaching out to the Maori people with education on tobacco use. I mean, that's what her specialty is. And those are people that are forgotten. And obviously a lot of these anti-cigarette, I mean, obviously on the tribal lands, they have tax-free cigarettes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to touch on that as well, because we're seeing that in New York.
Yeah.
Maybe be seeing that here in California as well, where some of the reservations, casinos, if you want to call them casinos.
I know a manufacturer in New York that is actually marketing,
right,
and selling their products in the reservation.
And I mean, there's not much the federal government can do.
There's nothing the federal government can do.
Well, they could sit out in front and wait for you to come out and tax you, but I mean, I don't see them doing that.
They can't do that because the sale was completed and conducted on tribal land.
And not to mention, in order to get on tribal land, you're a dual citizen. So my husband is Native American, and he's technically a dual citizen inside of the United States. It's really weird, but there's a complete sovereign nation. So if he buys something inside of the Chickasaw tribe, it's like no different than buying it from Canada. So
that's another story.
Yeah.
So,
that's another story. If I go to Canada, like for example, I live about an hour and a half north of Mexico.
Yeah.
So if I go and buy a couple bottles of booze in Mexico, when I go through customs, I have to pay taxes.
You have to pay taxes on that.
well, you don't go through customs when you come
Well,
off.
Canada is supposed to do the same thing because like in Buffalo, they come in and they go to the outlets that are right there in Niagara, and they buy clothes, and they're supposed to when they come back into Canada.
Depends on who is standing at the booth when you go through.
Exactly. Well, I have actually seen their little trickery. So they would come into Niagara there, go into Buffalo or New York, whatever you want to call it, and they would go to the outlets. They would throw away their old clothes, literally throw them in the garbage can, put on the new ones, and then that's how they were doing it. You literally saw garbage cans full of old raggedy clothes that they were doing, so they wouldn't have to pay that tariff or that tax coming back into Canada. So like what you're saying, I mean, that it's crazy. But then you think about it, the price of what their dollar to our dollar and what they're paying for those clothes and, at those outlets.
I haven't seen that name in a long time, Shannon Brown.
Shannon Brown?
Yeah.
No, Shannon's talking about Sean Gore, who was
Sean Gore,
godfather of vaping advocacy. He was the head of the very first state advocacy group, Oval, back in the day. I love Sean Gore, but I haven't seen him on Facebook in years.
So, I wanted to talk about what has happened in New York and New Jersey and Massachusetts, which is eventually going to happen here in California.
Massive black markets?
Well, not so much the black market because, like California, you'll still be able to purchase through the internet, and some of the other ones, New York's cut off, right?
New York's, every retailer that I know that has online stores has turned off.
So, I mean, what's pissing me off is what I've been hearing the last few days, what's going on here in California, and Brian knows how frustrated I am right now with all this and how
it's a new state.
Yeah, no, it's just not my state, but I'm getting fucking tired of hearing people say, so I can fucking order it online. I said, well, how about that poor guy who is getting it from for the last 5 years, who mortgaged his home, mortgaged everything he's had to open up this shop, to get you started, to get you quit smoking, has helped you with coils, has helped you with deciding on what mod to get or what you don't give a shit about that guy anymore because I can get it online. That's what's pissing me off right now.
So Smile came
it's not even the DIY people anymore. The DIY people used to fucking piss me off the most. But now hearing this new group say, well, fuck, I can get it online.
Okay, so I have for one thing, there are bad people in every group. So you can't say the DIY guys.
No. Yeah, but
there were outliers and dickheads in the out. I mean, not every DIY people.
Not all DIYers, but I was getting tired of hearing, I'll just DIY it. You never fucking DIY'd anything in your goddamn life. Now all of a sudden you're going to make your own e-liquid. Give me
hey, you know what? I'm going to be DIYing, but I'm going to be scallywagging the fuck.
But you never said fuck the vape shop.
Actually, I've been saying fuck the vape shop for years.
Oh shit!
Because the vape shops fucked me over.
Yeah.
So none of the vape shops. I've been in vape shops all over the country, and I go in there and I can't buy product.
Yeah.
I can't make you put product on the shelf that I will buy.
Right.
Well, when you decided that you were only going to stock lines for people that come in and buy a bottle every 2 days, and didn't think about the people that come in once a week and buy a bottle of liquid, you lost me because I vape 5 milligrams or 5 milliliters of liquid a day.
Well, that transition really did hurt. With the
So
baby
because
saying-
they looked at volume sales instead of long-term sales.
Correct. Yeah.
So-
Well, the other thing is too is okay. So I totally understand exactly what you're saying because one thing I do like when with the Brickwells line is that when we would go into shops,
Well, Brickwell's always told me liquid at 12 milligram.
yep, if they did not have 12, we did not want our liquid line in there because of the fact that we want to make sure that for our standing, what it came down to is that what they're showing us that they're going to like the cloud people. They're going to that mentality. What our whole goal was entire time was to help people get off cigarettes, 12 milligrams, and try to help them go down lower. Like we were the only 12 milligram people to be going around.
I'd go to vape events and people would be like, "Oh, buy my liquid," and I'd be like, "You don't have it in 12."
Mm-hmm.
I went to a vape shop or a vape show and I was like, "This liquid is really good, but I can't buy it." And he's like, "Why?" I said, "Because it doesn't come in 12." He's like, "Well, buy 6 and just vape twice as much."
No,
It don't work that way.
Yeah,
I got to give you crumbs for
I
that.
shouldn't
one.
have to. You
Yeah,
should be looking. I mean, if I was in the industry, I would be trying to provide product in as wide a range as possible to help every person,
Right.
you
Well,
know, that smokes, not smoke, and buy my product.
yeah. Do you think, Patrick, that the high wattage device started that?
Well, the original Kanger sub tank when the sub tanks came out, that's when all of the Nick levels started disappearing. The higher Nick levels disappeared when the Kanger sub tank came out. And I'll tell you this: if I vaped 6 milligram in a Kanger sub tank, it would not satisfy me.
No, it wouldn't. It didn't.
So I
It
guess
didn't work for me.
my vape stuff then.
Well, the Aspire was before. Well, didn't Aspire have their sub tank before Kanger came
They
out?
had the Aspire
Atlantis.
Atlantis, the Atlantis, but
Yeah.
the Kanger sub tank was better.
Yeah, it was better.
than
Yeah, it was better.
was.
I disagree.
And I'm sure that somebody in the room will probably put out a different.
I will agree with them. Those Kanger coils in the beginning, those
The square Kanger coils before the round ones came out, the square ones rocked.
they lasted a long time. And then you got to think as well, back then the juice wasn't as sweet as it is today, so those coils got some longevity out of them.
Now everything has got so much sucralose in it. When I vape it, I get like a coating of sugar in my mouth, and then I can't taste anything.
Yeah. And then that coil.
I know everybody that makes everything that I buy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in that situation where I know who manufactures the product that I buy, and I say,
Same here.
Say yes, then I say, well, I'm not going to buy that because I will not buy product that has sweetener added to it.
Well, here's the thing with Kanger coils is that they were actually pretty good. However, they were in the transition of lung to straight lung to DL. And that DL really punished the square coils with the side vertical coil on it because what happened when you vaped it, it got dry very quickly. Now, if you use it only mouth to lung style, they work phenomenal. That's why I went from the
that's why I'm a mouth to lung vapor.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why they work good for you.
Yeah.
So
and
you know what the best coil on the market is? The number one highest selling coil in the world.
It's going to be the Aspire coil.
The Aspire Nautilus BVC is the number one selling coil in the world. I go through cases of those because I have multiple devices that use that same coil. I use the Kabuki tank, which is an American-made tank, high-end. It's a high-end dropping coil tank, however you want to say it. I use those bridges in my billet boxes.
Yep.
I love that coil.
That coil, it's using so many.
The 0.8 ohm Z coil from Innikin is probably my favorite number 2 coil.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because Demetrius and Phil made it.
I know, I was waiting for you to say that.
It's not because my friends make it. It's because it's a damn good vape for the style of vape that I vape. I mean, it's designed specifically for mouth to lung vaping.
Mouth to lung vaping. Let me ask you a quick question because this may come up with other people. So the let's go for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. Let's go forward a month. PTMAs go through. These companies didn't get their stuff through, but let's say this company is huge in other countries. Are these companies going to be able to stay in business and produce liquid here in the United States to sell overseas?
Yes.
1 year.
That's going to hurt.
No. If you're a manufacturer and you manufacture product and you can manufacture product here in the United States forever if you're only exporting it.
Exporting.
Okay. Yes.
Now,
if you file your PMTA and it gets rejected, it doesn't even get accepted. It just gets rejected. You have to pull your product from the market today
in the U.S.
If you submit your PMTA and it gets accepted, you're allowed to stay on the market for 1 year.
Yep.
While the FDA goes over your product, your application. If your application gets rejected 6 months from now, then you have to pull your product that day that you get the letter from the FDA. They said, we're not accepting we're rejecting your PMTA.
Part two of that question.
Now, there is a school of thought. There is a school of thought that thinks that if your PMTA gets accepted and FDA doesn't give you an answer within a year, that that they're going to extend that out until they either reject or approve your application. The actual PMTA or the actual deeming regs specifically says 1 year.
1 year.
Between now and doomsday, which is in 12 days or whatever it is now, anything could happen. Trump could open up Twitter and see the 500 tweets that I sent him, or the 8,000 other tweets that other people have sent to him, and he could sit down the day before the deadline and write an executive order that says, you know what, you gave the cigar companies, the judge in the cigar. So here's the thing: the cigar lawsuit. Now, there's two things. First, FDA asked DOJ to petition Judge Grimm in that lawsuit to separate us out, or to separate cigars out, and give them enforcement leniency. All right. And then there was a separate lawsuit in a separate district court under a separate judge. That judge ruled that FDA bungled their deeming of cigars and said that FDA cannot enforce the existing regime of regulations onto the premium cigar industry.
Yeah.
That's a separate, that was a, so the FDA asking DOJ for, to go and intervene and get the judge to grant leniency to cigars doesn't matter anymore, because a judge ruled that FDA fucked up and tried to regulate premium cigars using the cigarette pathway, that pathway designed specifically for cigarettes. And that they have to come up with their own regulatory scheme for premium cigars.
Yeah.
So many of the complaints and arguments that were in that lawsuit were the same ones that have been in multiple vaping lawsuits. We argued most, if not all, of those same points to different judges about vaping and were denied.
Yeah.
So Trump could write an executive order and say, you know what, that judge is right, but he's right that vaping shouldn't be included as well. And here's my executive order ordering FDA to figure out a different way to do product regulation for vaping.
Yeah.
He could do that between now and the day that the day happens. I mean, he could actually do it afterwards, but why?
Let me hit you with part two of my question. What's going to stop one of the big e-juice companies packing up, going to Mexico, producing e-liquid there, or say anywhere in the UK, and shipping into the United States?
If you read the legislation that was written,
Nothing.
that Demetrius threw on screen last night, there's nothing.
Nothing.
Okay. Look at it this way.
I wanted you to say
this. Think about this. If a company manufactures product in the United States and opens a distribution center in the UK or in France or Greece or any other country, stamps that product in their country, and turns around and sends it back to the United States to a customer who just ordered it from the UK, or Greece or Italy or whatever.
Yeah.
So all that does is fuck over the American vape shop.
Yep.
Correct.
So the American businesses that manufacture e-liquid, they're out shipping.
Yeah, they're out there shipping costs.
They're out shipping,
which they'll somehow work to the company.
Every one of these companies that are and this is another thing that people really haven't really thought about, but every one of these companies that is putting a lot of money into their PMTAs, they're going to have to turn around and increase the price of their product to cover the expenses of their PMTAs.
We may be going back to the prices that we were used to 8 years ago.
You know what? I remember a time when I was paying $1 a mil.
Yeah.
88 cents a mil for
I paid, the most I remember paying was $21 for a 15 mil bottle. And
so, I mean, we did it, and we now this is the ugly thing that a lot of people, this is something that people are going to fight me about. They're going to say that there is no estimate of the number of people that vape that's accurate.
Right. I believe that number is way over exaggerated.
So the number I've seen people on Twitter, and the thing is we need to be unified.
Yeah.
We have to have a unified message. So if I say, and I'm using VTA's estimates for business numbers, the number of people that work in the industry and the number of businesses that are in this industry. But then I see people tweeting that there's 20 million people in the United States that vape. There are not 20 million people.
No, there's not even 15.
There's not even 13.
No.
There is no accurate number. So if we use the CDC estimate, which is probably the most accurate, in 2017, their number was 11 million.
Yeah.
The last released numbers are less than 10.
Yeah, that's what I was going to. I always say between 9 and 10 million.
I mean, if you look at the industry by itself has contracted over the last 2 years. The number of e-liquid millionaires has dropped.
Yes.
The size of the industry has contracted. The number of businesses in the industry, the number of sales in the industry has contracted. So there's no way there's more vapers now than there was in 2017. There's just no way. The number of full-time users that are hobbyist users, that are passionate open tank users that only use this product, probably about 3 to 4 million.
So what if every shop decide to put in numbers of their customers, like A through, AA, AAA, whatever, what have you. And then you have cities that actually are next to state lines, and then they have customers that actually go back and forth. That would really actually skew the numbers, though, too.
Yes.
Yeah, big time.
There's now C stores, they report their sales to somebody.
Correct.
Right.
Open Vapor, we don't report our sales to anybody. VTA can poll their members, and their members can kind of make estimates. But not every vape shop in the United States is a member of any trade organization, whether that's VTA or SFATA or anybody. There's just no way to track those sales. Now, the states that have sales tax, those numbers have to be reported to comptrollers or state tax collectors. Those numbers can be, but not every state has a tax.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's impossible.
Yeah. So
kind of
no matter what,
and I can guarantee you there's probably only 5 or 10% of the people in the industry that actually have a database of all their fucking customers.
Yeah.
I do.
Very
Completely.
I mean, Zamblebox does because they ship out. They got
350,000 looking.
There are vape shops that don't. Hey, you know what? You want to sign up to our reward program so that there's people that got websites that sell e-liquid that don't even keep track of the people that they've sold to in the past.
Well, I brought that up because I want people to prepare themselves because they may be buying juice from. I'm sorry I said juice. E-liquid.
It's a habit.
From China, made by Chinese manufacturers. That is a U.S. company.
Mm-hmm.
Get ready.
Okay, so I have to say this, and I don't understand why people have such a negative connotation to manufactured stuff. For one thing,
almost everything that we have is made in China.
I've seen videos from the e-liquid manufacturing facilities in China that are 10 times more sanitary than places in the United States.
Just watch one of Phil's videos. Just watch
Well, I
his
mean, that's not e-liquid, that's hardware manufacturing.
hardware.
But yeah, those
Yeah.
people know how to put together a clean room, and they can put it together fast.
Yeah. I mean, look at
Like they know how to build an ISO level 5 lab. And there's no e-liquids in the United States. I guarantee you there's probably only 2 or 3 in the whole of the United States that's an ISO 5.
Yeah.
I mean,
that actually follows, Paula and I were having a conversation about lab manufacturing practices and what goes into an ISO 5, because I didn't even know, and he had to tell me.
Yeah.
Now, there are labs that may be certified as an ISO 5 lab, but they're not actually following ISO level 5 manufacturing practices.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't understand why everybody thinks that Chinese made is bad. I mean, every fucking electronic that you have in your house is in China.
iPhone,
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Everything. They're probably made on the same assembly line. The Samsungs and the Apples are made side by side.
There is one Chinese-made product that I'm not a big fan of right now, and that's that stupid-ass virus going around. Because I kind of like shit to happen again.
There is that. No, that's an American-made. That's an American-made virus that was released in China.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Oh, here comes
I had to.
Sure, I've got a couple of questions. So,
go, Madison.
Since the vape ban has kind of whatever with California or wherever it's going to go, there's a lot.
Don't say it like that. Time out. Don't say like California.
She can say it however she wants.
It needs to be pushed into the ocean. That's all I got to say.
I want you to smile when you say California. Try it.
I can't. Everything. I mean, that prop was it prop 7?
7.
Yeah, prop 7 signs everywhere. I saw prop 7 sign on a tree.
Yeah, I had to deal with San Francisco today, so no, I'm not going to smile when I think of California.
Yeah, I hear you.
So with that, there's a lot of really good companies, because I mean, we all talk about the PMTAs and that's great and everything, and there's kind of loopholes around it. But what about states like California that put these bans into place? The companies inside there, are they going to still be able to manufacture?
They just can't sell. They just can't sell. They can't ban the manufacture of the product in their state. They just can't sell it in their state.
But they can sell it to another state.
Yeah.
That's Utah, right? Utah's like that. They can only purchase e-liquid from within state.
Or no, I believe there's probably it's like Minnesota.
Yeah.
Hey,
there are certain Ohio, for example, you have to have a manufacturing license.
You're in North Dakota, not Minnesota.
In Ohio. So James Jarvis, who was in the chat room a while ago, I think I saw his name. He is a manufacturer in Ohio, and he is manufacturing other people's lines in his facilities to sell it in Ohio. So there are states that are like that.
So what about, so now with the way he laid it out last night is if I go and buy an e-liquid that's made in a different country and I buy it from that country and come here. Well, let's say I go to my favorite vape store in England and they sell other e-liquids that come here from the United States. Would that present a problem? Because if they don't pass the PMTA?
Well, so New York, for example, the New York law.
That's a strict one.
Is a fucking BS law. There were versions of that law that criminalized possession of flavored e-liquid. That bill, I mean, that didn't go through. That got removed. But if a cop had pulled you over and saw a bottle of Beantown Vapers O-Face on your dashboard, you could be fined for that.
Yeah.
If that law had passed in that way. It didn't. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, how is the state going to enforce that? Are they going to check every package?
Nope.
No, because customs is not handled by the state; it's handled by the federal government. Now, if USPS, for example, no longer is able to, you're no longer able to ship, and you're going to have to use UPS or FedEx or DHL or some other carrier. Everybody's like, well, what if those companies are not going to do that?
Yeah, they already said that they will.
They want that extra shipping money. They
Yeah.
want to absorb the vaping industry shipments.
Exactly. Why do you think there was all those rumors in the beginning when that first came out? There was rumors that FedEx and UPS said that they would honor what was going on with USPS. So if it passed, yeah, that's what made me laugh. I'm thinking, no, you're not.
You're never going to see an official. You're never going to see a statement like that from FedEx or DHL or anything.
No,
Because they want that fucking money. These are private businesses.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not going to do that.
You take, like I said, you take a company like Xamplebox. They ship out 300 and some odd thousand packages a month, every fucking month that they're going out. How can UPS just say, "Oh, we don't want that money anymore"? And how could
what is the flat rate? What is the flat rate on that? How much money? I mean,
what is that, Tom? You guys know? I think it's
like $5.99.
I don't know.
I mean, using UPS or using FedEx or Crown, there's got to be a flat rate for that. You know, say $7.
Yeah.
Well, you got 300,000. You got 300,000 boxes that are going out at $7. They're not going to fucking.
I can't see UPS saying, "Oh no, we don't want that. We don't want that money."
Right, but given the fact that the stimulus package is being held up because USPS needs money,
we don't want to deal with it.
And they want to give all that money away.
Yeah. What? So okay, here's the COVID stimulus package to help the people. This is a totally different conversation, but it is designed to help the people survive while they can't work. Oh, let's throw all this other shit in there too.
Yeah, let's throw all of our pet projects in there that really don't need funding.
Right.
Or no, they also deserve whatever. But prioritize your shit, folks. I mean,
but they're not going to do that because they don't care. They don't work.
I saw a new conspiracy theory today that almost made me wreck my car, or I heard it on a podcast. Is that the Democrats are really pushing this bad election thing that the because if they can't ratify the results, and there's a fight about who gets to be sworn in as president, who gets to be the president until all that happens.
Speaker of the House.
Nancy Pelosi, President.
Oh, I saw that myself, and I cringed being a Californian. I cringed at the thought that the skeleton would run the country.
And she's not a friend of us at all.
And let's put it this way: we have not had a female president in office, and I don't want the president to be that lady. There would never be another one again.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not registered under any particular political party because I like to look at what each politician that I'm voting for does.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would say that's libertarian. It's not libertarian. I want to look at if there's a Democrat that says the stuff that I want to hear, I'll vote for a fucking Democrat. If a Republican says the stuff that I want to hear, I'll vote for a fucking Republican. And I'm going to hold them to that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Promise. So, there's a lot of people, and this is also going to piss people off. There's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, we have to vote for Donald Trump because he's a Republican, and Republicans are pro vaping." So, here's the deal. In October, Trump met. With all of the fucking leaders of vaping.
Shortly after the rally,
actually, if you, I read the transcript just recently
of the people in vaping.
Well, okay. So I read the transcript of that meeting, and his comments led me to believe that he understands the problem,
the business size of it.
He understands the problem. He understands that there's counterfeit products, that if he doesn't step in to protect American businesses, that we're going to be flooded with Chinese counterfeit products, right? That is one. He kept saying that throughout the thing. Yeah. That we need to protect American businesses. Okay, so he had the rest of October, he had November and December, and most of January, 4 months before COVID. If he was going to do something, that was when he would have done it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now we have all these people that are like, well, we're gonna make some noise on Twitter. We're gonna reach out to him. We're gonna, I've been hitting him on Twitter for literally 7 or 8 months. Before COVID, I was tweeting at him. Mm-hmm. Demetrius was tweeting at him. If he was gonna step in, he would have stepped in already.
Yep.
It's politically not convenient for him. He even said, there's a quote, I should never have gotten into that vaping shit.
Oh, he hates Melinda for bringing it even up.
Yeah. Well, here's
So-
like I actually have a few questions actually on this. Is one
Let me finish my point real quick. We have a vice president, Pence, who passed as governor of Indiana one of the most draconian anti-vaping laws ever passed. He's a Republican. We had we have Biden. We have news pieces where Biden is quoted as, the headline says Biden swears or Biden's going to ban vaping.
He's going to kill it.
He doesn't say that in the fucking story.
Sure.
In the story, he says, I'm going to listen to the science and make my decisions based on the science that's brought to me, which doesn't bode well, but at least that's what he said. Now, Kamala Harris has basically said, we're going to get rid of we're going to save the children. So here's the thing. You have we have one politician who's lied to us to our faces.
Yeah.
Trump. I'm going to get rid of regulation. I'm going to save businesses. I'm going to get rid of 75% of these unfair regulations. That was one of his campaign platforms. Hasn't done it. At least not for us. We have a vice president who was like fucking trolling on vaping. Like he fucked vaping over in Indiana for 2 years.
Hard.
We have a guy that says, I'm going to look at the science. He's demented. He's going to say whatever he wants.
Well,
and we have a politician
anyways.
that says, I'm going to ban it. So none of them are our friends. I don't know why anybody in their right mind thinks that Trump is going to step in.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
So anyway, Brian, I'm sorry. You can ask your question.
No, you actually answered one of my questions there. Actually, you did.
None of them are the saviors of the industry.
No.
Right. Well, what
as of right now.
Correct. Well, what I'm looking at is like I'm a big single issue voter. Is it for or not for vape? Like that's my biggest thing right there.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
This is the single issue voter discussion. So if you had a politician that was anti-gay, anti or pro-life,
yeah.
So a conservative Christian Republican, essentially. We need to put all these kids in gay conversion camp and torture them until they're not gay anymore.
Okay.
I hate black people, but I'm pro vaping.
Oh, and don't forget he's a pedophile and womanizer.
Are you a single issue voter?
Well, he's not talking about somebody specifically. He's just putting out scenarios. First of all,
Brian said he didn't say my name, so I'm good with that.
Vaping is the demographics for vaping is everybody. Literally, there are vapers of every political persuasion, every sexual orientation, every color. In this country, not let alone all over the world. So, to try to define us as a class or as a that this is. I mean, there are gay voters that are never going to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
There are people of Middle Eastern descent that are vapers that are never going to vote for Trump.
Yep.
So for the single issue, now you say that you're a single issue voter, but obviously there are situations that are going to negate that. Correct. There are single issues. I think every gun in America should be confiscated, but you know what? You can vape.
So you're going to upset Tom right there.
Right? Well,
take that statement back. Take that statement.
There are. I can tell you that there has been a candidate. There have been candidates that were anti-gun but pro-vaping.
So in that scenario, let's just take 2A and vape, just side by side. That's the issue right there, and that's
I'm going to keep my guns, and I'm going to still vape. But I'm not going to vote for the. I'm not going to vote for the candidate that's going to take my
Brian, which are you going to pick? You're going to pick the guns and kill vaping?
Mentally, what I would have to do is take a step back and think, okay, so if they're going to come and try to take my guns and take everything away from me, but I can still vape, or I can keep my guns without fines, without anything else, and they take away my vape, do I have an option of doing what I can to keep my vape? Or you'll
have your guns so you can shoot the candidate.
Well,
And we do not advocate violence to politicians.
No, I'm joking.
Less
that was-
comments and concerns, not of the show.
So what it comes down to in my head is, okay, what can I actually get away with to still keep what I need to do?
In this country, not me.
So for me, there's an order of liberties that need to be protected.
Right.
Okay. So 2A is at the top of that list.
I agree.
2A protects everything below.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So obviously, I'm going to vote for the candidate that's not going to take my guns away, and I'm going to try to chip away at his anti-vaping dialogue, and still fly my pirate flag until I don't need it anymore.
Right. So what it comes down to is, okay, so
but I'm not going to vote for a pro-vaping candidate that's going to take my guns away.
Correct.
Never
No, I am actually with you on this because the fact is what it comes down to is, like, with the gun stuff, just let that be. And what can I do to show you science that this is actually?
But you're not a single issue voter anymore.
Yeah,
correct.
no longer,
I agree. I can agree with that.
I think
I have a simple solution.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Just vote for me for president.
no.
Let me ask you something, Patrick.
Do whatever the hell you want. I don't care.
I am pro Tom.
Time out, guys. I want to ask Patrick a question because this is a big concern of mine, and I push people to do this. How many vapers do you think are actually registered voters? Just off the top of your head. You're smiling. You're smiling because I think you got the same number I have in my head. I'm going to say less than 25%.
Okay, so here's the thing. If you look at the general population, if you just look at American population in general, the number of registered voters is pretty good because when you get your driver's license, it allows you to register to vote right there when you get your driver's license. So the number of registered voters is okay. It's the number of registered voters that actually go and stand in line and vote.
It's like 40%, I think, of the general population.
Well, if you're over 65.
Well, no, that's not even.
I think the number of registered voters is probably even higher than that. I think the number of people that are actually registered to vote that turn up to vote is very low. I mean, if you look at just the 2016 numbers, the number of people that actually voted versus the number of people that are registered to vote.
2016 was a high one, though. I think
it wasn't even as high as the Obama election.
Well, no, well, that's different. You can't use that number. That number can't be used. No, you can't because
if you look at the last 4 election cycles, it wasn't even as high as the last 4 election cycles.
You sure about that? I thought it was higher. I thought more people.
You're going to question
now the number of Republicans that turned out versus the number of Democrats that turned out was different.
That's true. That's true.
You have to look at it this way: when you kind of do an election of the lesser two evils, you're going to get less people to vote.
I think in Australia voting is complete. So here's the thing. And I'm going to tell you this story. It's I'm way longer than what I expected to be on here. Anyway,
we are 12 minutes.
My wife was not born here. My wife is from the Philippines.
Yeah.
And she was here for 5 years. Even before we got married, she was an American citizen. Like, she worked to get her American citizen. The first election that she was actually allowed to vote in, that she was a registered voter to vote in, she's a nurse. And the polling places are announced that they close at 7, but she didn't get off work until 7:30. So she comes home and she's upset because she wasn't allowed to vote because the voting place is closed. And I said, get in the car. We'll go to the fire hall because the fire hall is still taking votes because of the turnout.
Right.
So she got to vote. She was literally on the verge of tears because she didn't get to vote.
Yep.
So this is what people that don't take the election cycle for granted.
Right.
This is how they respond to exercising their freedom and their right to control who governs them.
That's how
participate in the system.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Most Americans that are born here that we take this shit for granted, and we don't realize the power that our vote has.
Yeah. That's how my parents were. They're born and raised in Italy. When they got here, that was such a big deal to them. I remember my parents in the 70s and early 80s. That was
up. to go vote.
To vote. It was an important thing for them. And that's why I took it so seriously watching my parents growing up and how important it was for them to show up to the polls and vote. Whether or not you think your vote matters, get your fucking ass out there and vote.
So one of the most
don't mail it in. Go
vaping advocates
vote.
that I know is Jennifer Berger Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
She's with CASA.
Mm-hmm.
She's out. And there's no fucking way that she's going to be a single issue voter.
Yeah.
She's no way that she's going to base her vote on the fact that the Republican in general, like she's not going to do that. She's not going to vote for a candidate that's going to take other freedoms away from her or her choices away from her.
But you have to think of your family and your family's family. You're down the road.
I hate to say, and I've been in Ted Cruz's office. I've sat with his staff. I've talked to him. There's a picture of me with him somewhere floating around on the internet.
It's not a meme yet.
These politicians, when you go into their offices and you say, "Hey, vaping's important," blah blah blah, and you say, how many emails have you gotten from vapers? And they go, it's not that many, or none, or like during the Vaping Militia days. I really told everybody writing a real letter and sending it in the mail to your politicians is important because they have a metric in their head. If somebody actually sat down and wrote a letter and took the time to put it in an envelope and mail it to me, that person represents more than just them. Yeah. That handwritten letter represents about 10 of them. So when you go into their office and you're running a letter writing campaign and they got 30 or 40 letters on their desk from vapers, that's a big number for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when there's no engagement, when CASA puts out a call to action and says, please
open those emails. This. We stress that all the time.
Alex was on my show and Alex is saying they have a 10% open.
Yeah, he was on our show.
And that's a good number. That 10% is a good number. Well, you figure, what do they have? 150, 200,000 members of CASA? That means when they send out a national call to action and 10% of the people that get that email actually open it, that only means like, what, 20,000 people opened that letter? 15,000 people opened that email? Yeah, and how many of them actually clicked on the link to go to the call to action to participate?
Well, put a perspective into this. Let's say you have 300 members in your group. 30 people actually signed and sent that out.
No, they just opened it.
Just opened it and read it.
Mm-hmm.
Not taking action on it, just read it. 30 members are your 300 people opening it up. That right there, that perspective right there, doesn't seem like a whole lot of people. That's like, okay, all of your people are following you, and like 30 people like, yeah, I'll read your stuff. It's not a good percentage.
That doesn't even mean they read it. That just means they clicked the open button. They saw what the bullet point was, and then they closed it.
Yeah, right. They actually took the action to do what.
So team free shit and team make this as easy as possible. The CASA thing is amazing. You can go in, you can just fill in the blanks, or you can just hit send.
It's all done for you. We stress that all the time with our members.
Write your own personal stuff in there. It actually works for every level of like participation. Yeah. But if people don't participate, now does Ford Automotive send emails out to everybody that bought a Ford the government wants us to change our environmental limits on our vehicles. Could you please write a letter to your politician? No, they don't do that. We're one of the only consumer product categories that relies heavily on consumer participation for the protection of their product.
Yeah. Right. Well, I want to thank you, Patrick. I know we're running a little bit late here, but we also do a little thing here at the end of the show where we say our goodbyes and let our members, our viewers know what we would like them to do. So we're going to start with Brian. No, I take it back. I'm going to start with Tommy. Go ahead, Tom.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm going to start with you tonight, Tom. I'm not going to give you a benefit of the doubt.
You've started with me the last 3 times.
All right, go.
Last 4 times, actually. Thank you for being on our show. The knowledge that you have is just amazing. I sat here and listened the entire time. Tim, you're awesome. Madison, you're awesome. Brian, you're awesome.
Here we go.
John, you suck. Bye.
Brian, you're up, Brian.
I really like to truly thank our guest. I know it was short notice, and it was a pleasure to have you on here. As much as like I'm one of the people that listen to you as much as I can. People who don't have a plethora of time and to watch everything that's on YouTube, that's on Facebook, that's on podcasts, everything like that. Just have a second to listen to the show and listen to the knowledge that's happening on the show, and to give you a little bit more of a perspective to help you understand what's really going on. And that's the best thing I can do is try to do what you can to try to help everyone else you can. So thank you. Appreciate you coming on. Thank everyone else for always being here. It's always a great time.
Madison, you're up.
Well, I'm happy I got a new podcast to listen to, so I'll be definitely listening to you. I guess the other thing to throw out is to everybody else is the other thing you can do to try to help out is, I don't know if they're going to do it during COVID time, but I know they do it here in this area. People will walk by your door to pitch for campaigns for people, for you to vote for. I used to do this. I still do this with Autism 420. I have a drafted letter that I always have printed out and ready to go. So when election season comes around, I hand it to the people who knock on my door because they want to ask you what it is that they need to do for you to vote for their candidate. And that's where I open up the engagement for the people who work directly for them and hand that letter to them, because it is a way for them to go back to their campaign manager to say, I'm receiving these letters from these people who are really about this issue, is another way to get your voice to be heard that way, besides sending them an email or calling them, because you are literally talking to somebody face to face who is working for that person that you're trying to elect. It's one of the great ways to get to know their campaign staff, to get to know that politician, is by people who work for them, and that face to face encounter that you have. And as always, it was a pleasure being here.
Thank you, Madison. Timmy boy, you're up, Timmy. I'm not going to use your sound clip anymore.
I think this may have been the 1-2 hour block of my life where I've probably said less than 20 words.
Super quiet tonight, man.
I think I said more in the pre-show than I did for the entire show collectively. So I'll just chalk that one up as a brand new record for myself, and I'll have my own little party. But Patrick, thank you very much for being on the show. We love having all this wealth of knowledge pass through, because we appreciate the people that tune in for the show, all the YouTuber people, all the people in the Example Box family group. Again, I've said this before, we don't do this for our health. Well, we do. Theoretically, we do. But we also don't do it just for shits and giggles either. I mean, the point is we're trying to keep conversation going, start conversations, and get people understanding exactly the levity of the situation at hand right now. So it's important that people take part in any way, form, shape they can, get involved with groups. And one thing I wanted to point out today that I noticed, and I'm not trying to make a major issue with it, but I'm a member of several other groups on Facebook, and there are people having conversations. And what I encourage all vapors to do, whether you know a little bit about a little bit or a lot about a lot, this is about a collective effort, right? We're all in the same fight here together. And I go into all these groups and I see people want to start conversations, and I see vapors fighting with each other. And I see people kind of jawing at each other. Somebody thinks that, pods are the problem, and then everybody says, quit using that as an excuse. It's not about that anymore. Point is that we need to point all of our weapons at one end goal and not at each other and try to tear each other down internally. So I would say, if you're going to be out there and having conversations with fellow vapors, keep it level-headed and remember we're all in this together. Beyond that, thanks to everybody else who's here week in, week out, and I appreciate all of you. And so vape on, vape strong, and double guns and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, what Patrick actually said earlier in the show is
You say you could talk.
I'm talking real quick.
I'm just
What Patrick said earlier in the show is that how he got into it and how he got into connecting with other people was through groups with Facebook and all that stuff. And this right here, what we're doing is exactly the same thing as what he started out with.
Yeah.
So,
Much higher tech.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I want to thank Patrick again for your time, for being on the show. I also want everybody to go to that link, check out the Patrick's I can't smokefreeradio.com, the website. Also look for it through it's available in all the podcasts, correct? So,
Everywhere.
yeah, and
Everywhere.
basically we just have to type in Smoke Free Radio, correct? And they would find your show there.
Any podcasting platform, if they type in Smoke Free Radio, you're going to get my shows. You're going to get the uploads of the Smoker Show and the DP Show, and you're going to get Vaping in the Mic as well. Literally, we try to be everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
Every podcast platform except for SoundCloud, because I'm not paying for SoundCloud.
Yeah.
But we're on iTunes. We're on Spreaker, Stitcher, Podcast Addict. We will soon be on another huge platform that's about to launch that I'm not allowed to talk about yet.
Yeah.
We're literally everywhere that you can get podcasts. We're on Google Podcasts. We're Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. We're like literally everywhere that hosts podcasts. We have tried to get on every platform. Obviously, the video show is on my YouTube channel. There's like 5 followers. There's no big, YouTube
YouTube's a tough bracket.
Was an afterthought because I did audio. We're on Twitter now. Like if you follow me on Twitter, if you just type in #Son of Liberty Radio, all one space, like it's on my name, screen,
that one. I'm sorry.
you can actually pull up the Periscope feed on my Twitter account. So we try to put it everywhere because is it my turn? By the way,
No. I'm just saying, Brian, pull up that link for Twitter, please, if you can, and post it on there for everyone so they can.
Yeah, I'm at Knock Noir is my Twitter handle. But yeah, is it my parting thought?
No, I'll finish up. I just want everybody to focus on that link down there on the bottom, guys. Join CASA. Stay on top of what's going on. Open those emails. Remember, like we've said this over and over again, if you're getting an email from CASA, it's going to be on Sunday. If you're getting one other than Sunday, it's an important issue, guys. Open it. Pay attention to what's going on. Follow the link and do what you need to do. No more of this, it's CASA, and just scroll down past it. They're not spamming you. They're sending you basically one email a week unless there's a call to action. And usually the call to action is going to be in your area or it's something that's nationwide. So take the time to open that email, pay attention to what's going on, click the link, finish. It's like we said it over and over again. It's filled out for you. Unless you really, and most of us, like Patrick stated, I do the same thing. I think most of us on this panel have something already pre-written. Copy, paste it, put it in there, move on. Don't scroll past it, guys. Again, thank you for everybody watching our show. We appreciate you and all the comments. I see a lot of new faces here tonight off of the YouTube channel, and I appreciate every one of you guys. And I want to say a big thank you again to you, Patrick, for taking the time and joining us today and informing us on some things I didn't know about. And it was great to have somebody like you on our show tonight. And I'm going to leave it to you. Now it's your turn. Go.
This is literally my favorite part of my own show.
Yeah, this is my
part where
it's mine too because I get to tell Tom he can't say that's what Tim said.
On my I'm going to cut a video together of just all of the best parting thoughts of my show because that's when I really get to preach. During the show is all fun and games, but at the end of the show, I punctuate every fucking show with a message. And the whole idea of this industry is that we are here. We were created by smokers. This whole industry This is a consumer-driven industry. The entire industry built up around guys that found a way to not smoke and wanted to help other people not smoke. Back in the early days when we were on different message boards, and we weren't even on Facebook. We were on different streaming services that were available at the time. I think these were all gaming things to start out with, that where people were gaming, and we figured out a way to hijack that and turn that into a way to spread the word about vaping. So I created my show. The whole message of my show is I'm going to teach you how to read these stories, decipher the truth past the fucking headlines, and figure out ways to teach you how to do this for yourself. Because people, if something's happening in your town, you don't need somebody from out of town coming in to fight for your rights. You need to be able to stand up in front of your city council and bring the science and the information and cohesively argue to protect this industry on a local level. Obviously, there's groups to do it in the state house. There's groups to do it in the White House. But you need to, truly be the grassroots. And the only way to do that is to educate people to be able to fight for themselves. This is boot camp for advocacy. I'm going to show you the stories. I'm going to tear them apart in front of you. I'm going to show you where the lies are. And you got to be able to absorb that information and regurgitate it in front of the people that represent you to protect this fucking industry. Because God knows 500,000 people die every year. There's no disputation. There's no argument against that. 500,000 people die using a product that is legal to sell. And when purchased and used in the approved method, the way that it's intended to be used, it is known that 50% of the people that purchase that product and use it as intended will die early.
Yep.
And it's legal. It's like legal suicide booth. Yep. It's just a fucking slow and painful way to do it. I don't know what any of your backgrounds are, but people have heard me say this on the show. The worst fucking way to die is gasping for air. There is nothing more scary than slowly dying, unable to breathe. And if we can protect people, if we can figure out a way to protect this industry, I really don't care about vapers. They've already made that choice. They've already purchased that product and they've already transitioned. I'm saving this industry, or I'm trying to save this industry to protect the people that will die tomorrow. And if this industry is not there, if it's not vibrant, if it doesn't have all of the selections and choices that it has, it's going to be less successful. And we need the most successful weapon against death as possible.
Yep.
And fewer choices, fewer selections reduces the success.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're fighting for.
That's what we're fighting for. All right, guys. Again, thank you to everybody on the show. Thank you again, Patrick. And that's it for us, man. I have still not have come up with a good ending for the show, but goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
I usually play the Jackie Moon song, but I'm not going to play the Jackie Moon song.
That's creepy.
Love you guys. Everybody fight together, stay together, and vape on.
Vape on.
That's good.